of the complexity that Serling and the other screenwriters found in the first film. You completely eradicate it because all you said is pessimism. Pessimism wins.
I feel like Heston made this film, and he saw the first piece as a conclusion and not a what comes next. And he was very disappointed in the treatments that came forward from Serling and from Dane bringing forward were basically like, where do we go from here? I mean, they weren't really groundbreaking in terms of what they wanted to do. I mean, when I read the concepts for what they were doing, they were what Heston was complaining about, more adventures in this reality. But when I have to go back on the fact that sequels were not common in this era.
Mm-hmm.
So Heston had no concept on how to shape this vision on how to shape this reality into something bigger.
Right.
And so he's like, well, this is my view. This is pessimistic. I mean, it really short-circuited what could have been a very powerful ending by him just saying, let's just blow it all up. And they had to kind of force that shoehorn that in. I mean, it wasn't the original ending of Revisited, Planet of the Apes Revisited. It was supposed to be them going off and creating new society.
I think it comes down to that so much of this was about financial reward. The first film had been so surprisingly successful. Yeah. This film...
Get it done as fast and cheap as you can so we can get in the theater.
And it ends up...
the property's still hot.
Let me pull this across because I found this earlier. It had a budget of about $4-ish million and it ends up making 19. So at that time,
it justified itself. Yeah.
No, it made more money than the first, technically, by comparison in terms of cost to.
But then you also have Franciscus that said, "I thought the ending was awful. A picture without hope. I think Ted Post, the director, and I pleaded for someone to survive this mess, be it Chuck Heston's character or the girl or Brent's character, somebody far away from the explosion for whatever reason, so that mankind still had some hope." And they didn't listen to that. And the thing is that it became such a quick cash grab because this was thrown into theaters so quickly after the first one that they didn't give consideration to what the story was or what the message was. They had such a great message film in the first one. This one was nothing.
They wanted of the apes in the papers.
That's somewhere. All they wanted.
Yeah.
Well, I will credit this film for having this idea of taking war at the time and a bomb at the time and expanding upon that idea. It lost the sense of racial conflict, even though you could kind of see it in the orangutans and the chimpanzees and the gorillas and how they felt about humans.
The protesting.
I mean, even Nova, what's her name? Nova?
Linda Harrison.
Linda Harrison even talked about the fact that in interviews that when they would go to sit down, Kim Hunter. She would talk about in interviews when they would go to sit down, the fact that the orangutans would eat together and the chimpanzees would eat together
break it up.
And the gorillas would eat together. She saw that breakdown just in eating. They would automatically go into their spaces. It lost any political tone other than the bomb. The bomb became the dominant force, the conflict in the bomb.
In hindsight, you can see how they're tying religion and war together in the same thing where you have people actually worshiping a bomb and calling this bomb their god, and to show them their true faces is how ugly they are under they're hiding how ugly they are, and the only time they can show really what monsters they are is when they are in front of their god, stuff like that.
I thought of something earlier today, Richard, that it comes more to the in-betweens we do, where I've proposed ideas, and I think this is when I was trying to ask the question about transgendered actors or gay actors or whatever it may be playing those roles.
Right.
And I'm simply trying to ask, at what point do we say that an actor is an actor, or what are we doing, blah, blah, blah. And you said to me, and I don't remember if you said it in the episode or if you said it off mic, it was, I know what will happen is a week later I'll think of what I wanted to say to you.
Right, yeah.
Well, hey, you can edit this, so you can just throw it in there.
Yes, we can. As friends, we can do that. Because you can then say to me, hey, I know what I wanted to say to you. I've had a chance to think it out. And it feels like this script was exactly that they didn't wait for that second iteration. They didn't wait for that second thought. They simply went, that's a quick thought. Let's do that. Let's put it in the script. And it feels like, as I watch this, these are quick thoughts. Oh, yes, let's put the chimpanzees protesting and they're sitting in. And it's just reactionary stuff instead of, because I even know this. I don't look at either one of you as adversarial in any way. However, if you say something to me that matters, a week later I'll go, oh shit, I want to tell Richard this. I want to tell Sean that.
And we get in that conversation. We can in a film. Like, film ends.
Right. If we haven't had that conversation, and because they rush it, it doesn't have the resonance of a complete
like a thought-out argument.
Yes. And you're left to the editor trying to make
something of nothing.
That conversation. Yeah.
Now, I want to be fair. There was one person that actually did have reverence for this project, and that would be Maurice Evans, who played Zaius. He told us that there's every reason why a story should be expanded if the author has anything that they've got to say. And I think in the case of the sequel to Planet of the Apes, the public will find that the author has a great deal more to say than they had in the first one. In fact, the sequel, to my way of thinking, is infinitely more profound from a philosophical standpoint, in many ways even more frightening. I can actually see why he says that, because they get into the annihilation of society. But I think it's also very short-sighted to say that simply the annihilation of society
it's smart because you kill everybody.
Yeah, it's just because I wipe out everyone that I've somehow said something more profound.
I thought of another movie that all the heroes die. Glory.
Yeah, but even in that, I mean, okay, that's also the whitewashing of, history, etc. But still, that has something profound to say about the sacrifice people made.
But these are, I went down that list. There was I went to a site that had 50 films where the protagonist dies at the end of the film. And I went down that list and I'm like,
American Splendor. Oh, wait. No,
they're
sorry,
all
that's not
kind
a good
of
example.
after this movie. They're all kind of after Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Top of the World, Ma. What movie am I thinking of?
I'm sorry?
Top of the World, Ma.
Bonnie and Clyde and the movies where you expect the characters to die would do it. I mean, The Shining, he dies.
But
Nightmare on Elm Street 3, he dies. There's all these movies where they die, but they're all movies a little later in time. We talk about
that's what I was thinking.
We talk about movies as a picture of that moment. I don't know what's going to be said about zombies in 2015, 2019, culture, what it means going forward for what we were at this moment. But when you look back, Cold War, we got those science fiction movies that had the sterile aliens that would come and those kinds of things. The idea that movies kind of reflect what's happening culturally. I don't know what was happening with this movie that was so unique to the movies in the 80s that would let the leads die.
But say, I think your reference to Bonnie and Clyde, and we keep coming back to that, I think that may be the most truthful to what you're saying, because we take characters that really, you can get into breaking down that film and you can look at The
Man Who Would Be King. That's another one where one of the leads dies.
I think that was on the list.
Okay.
Yeah. So Private Ryan was on the list.
Yeah.
So Bonnie and Clyde, they aren't the lovely characters that film portrays. But by the end, they become our folk heroes. And I think that you can go along with that director and say, I'm creating an illusion so that by the end of it, you're in love with them. So you can also see that their horrific crimes might be deserving, or might be fitting to where their lives end. Not deserving, but fitting.
Appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, appropriate. That's a very good word. That's saying something. That's taking characters that we love and eradicating them and saying, you know what? You can be as whimsical as you want, but if you do these horrific acts, that's what will happen to you. This one doesn't make any sense because no one has earned it.
There are so many people that do not deserve to die that are killed off in this.
So I want to also, before the end of this, we're about 23 minutes in. The critics were not super kind to the film. About 2/3 of them were pretty negative.
Understandably so.
It currently has about a 41% positive rate. Rotten Tomatoes, 41%. And those are archival.
Yeah. It's a hard ending. I mean, it's a hard ending.
So some of the reviews for social commentary for this one ends with the glumness of not a strong point. And I was like, okay, the glumness is not a strong point. A quickie follow-up that vainly tries to imitate the look of the original on an obnoxiously limited budget and for the most part eschews the philosophical, social, and racial subtext of the first film in favor of straightforward shoot-'em-up. Can't disagree with that.
No.
However, there was one positive review that I found, an effective sequel that takes an increasingly dark look at the unavoidable nature of war. I can't disagree with that either.
That's a little bit true, yeah.
You can find a truth in that. It's just, to me, again, they missed opportunities to take this to the next level.
But sequels were not common.
Yeah.
No.
I got another movie where the mains die. Penn and Teller get killed.
I've never seen that.
Either you guys seen that?
No.
Literally, the movie's called Penn and Teller Get Killed.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, they die, and you hear a voiceover from Penn saying, well, we told you the name was Penn and Teller Get Killed. Do you think we're going to cop our way out of this? Nope, we're dead. That's us. This pulling back is not us going up into heaven. No, that's just the camera going back. And then Penn and Teller get killed. Then somebody walks into the room where they died and can't believe it. So they pick up a gun and kill themselves. And then some cops show up and see what's going on. And they can't take it either. So they kill themselves. So you just hear more and more people shooting themselves.
But at least Penn and Teller, I can expect that.
So let me mention this because we talked about everybody else. So I saw some interviews with Linda Harrison, and she referred to James Franciscus as Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going as Jimmy going forward because apparently he's Jimmy, not James Franciscus. And he said, when I read the script, I thought the story was fine, but the characters really wasn't much of a man in the essence. He was led around by and no, saying yes, no. So I told my agent, Dick Clayton, I can see why Burt Reynolds, parentheses Reynolds, trim us down.
Oh, poor Burt.
The
poor
character,
Burt.
the
Rest
way
in
it
peace.
is,
Let me take a drink.
is drawn, is no man.
Right.
Over the weekend, I did something outrageous, which I knew it was, but I wasn't going to let the script changes be muddled around. A line here, a line there. It needed a whole new reworking. Franciscus and a friend named John Ryan wrote over that weekend 60 pages.
Good Lord.
Several days later,
Damn.
Franciscus put the script in Abrams' mailbox and waited for reaction. Abrams, with a fairly irritated, telling the actor he had no right to rewrite the screenplay weeks before the production began, that neither he nor Jacobs would accept it. Franciscus says, anyway, 2 days later, a revised script came in, and by heavens, there were 54 of my 60 pages in it. In my rewrite, I turned the character from a man being chased to a man in jeopardy.
No, he didn't.
And confused.
No, he didn't.
He was a
And
man chased,
still a
confused.
No, he didn't.
But I find this fascinating. This ballsy
That's
position by an actor saying,
and especially a
I'm
TV
going to
actor.
rewrite this to make that. I know why Burt Reynolds told us down because he was reacting to all this stuff. I'm going to make him a bigger character.
I'm just imagining Burt Reynolds running around just with his mustache and, all right, yeah, let's go over there.
But you go
and
back
then you have a clip where Dom DeLuise is an orangutan and they're
my
just cracking
God.
up together.
So when
But
you think of,
Franciscus changed like 54 pages in the script with what he wanted his character to say.
and especially they didn't do it very effectively, so there's such desperation on his part, number one, to break out of television of that era,
He
to
did,
step into this.
and he went right back to television.
Yes, he did.
A year later.
Yeah. Even though this film is a success, quadrupling its initial budget, that's probably not us. It's not figuring in its promotional budget, so it maybe doubled its actual investment. But still, it's Franciscus, whatever. Yes, that was Richard taking a drink. If you heard the ice, that was Richard. Do you want to take another?
It feels like you've been drinking all week.
So I don't think anyone will begrudge us to know that we've watched a movie 1 minute at a time, and we want to enjoy and have
We've
feelings, right?
earned it after this movie.
Damn it! You just made me bleep again in this
I
episode.
said damn earned it.
I did too, and we have to bleep the GDs.
Which are you bleeping?
Both GDs.
Oh, yeah.
So I joined in about, 30, 40 minutes into the
About
first
30.
movie.
About 30.
And I got to listen to it. I got to watch it. And I've watched the first 5. I haven't watched the new films. And it's kind of interesting watching the films and then now doing research. There's some really, really avid Apes fans out there.
Huge.
that know a lot more than me, so I feel kind of a little intimidated being on this podcast, not knowing all the minutiae of what's going on.
Okay.
So I can only honestly give how I feel.
We're not supposed to be experts. We're just talking about
but going back and doing some research on the films,